All right, I'm going to start back up again. And I'm right where I told you that I would be when we started back up. In other words, I don't know where this is on the handout I gave you, but it's the did receive memory warning, so it's on the bottom of page 1. And literally there's nothing in there. Where it's got the call to super. See that? Now, it's kind of interesting. I was reading something a friend of mine put on Facebook, and he said, what he put on there, and this guy, he's totally apolitical. He doesn't, I would think at least he votes for the candidate from listening to him. I haven't seen him since high school. He now is a massage therapist in California, all right? But he's a real good guy. We were pretty good friends in high school. But what he said in there was, hey, Republicans, you're wrong. The Democrats aren't a bunch of radical Nazis. Democrats, you're wrong. Republicans are not a bunch of terrible Nazis. And he said, what you don't realize is you two groups are a hell of a lot more alike than you want to give yourselves credit for being. All right? Why am I telling you that? Because in many ways, this isn't that different from other languages you've worked with. Super dot did receive memory warning. What's it doing? It's calling the parent, right? The same kind of thing that we did in Java. All right, when we went and overloaded a method, and then we decided after we overloaded it, we wanted to call the parent to make it do something. So we said super dot followed by the name, and that's exactly what's happening right there. All right. And where it says did receive memory warning, what would you put there? Well, typically that is one of the places. As an example, if you had problems with your battery or something else. All right, something was going on the phone where literally, you had so many other things open that you were running out of memory on the device, type of an idea. All right? All right, so again, I added all the stuff that's in green here, and I tried to make it easier for you to understand what that was. All right? Now, that make your guess, this is a case where, if you listen here, this is a case where you can key all this in. Boom, we're going to go through it. But don't start typing right now, because then you'll stop listening. All right? But you can key all this stuff in. After you've got it all keyed in, or you can just do it when you've got just the IB action, funk, make your guess, and then two curls. But what you can do then is, again, you go to your button, you hold down on the control key, you hold down on your touchpad, and you drag up here, or there. And when you do that, up in the view controller at the top, that's where that little black box popped out that we looked at last time. And one of the things that's in there that should be at least, that function. All right. So let's just run through the function. What I want to do is just run through the rest of the code. Okay, rather than having you type and worrying about typing, etc. Before we do that, I do want to mention something to you. Let's see. Trying to remember how I did this. All right. Well, it'll come to me as we're going. So, all right. So what the code here says, see if the current text field is empty. So in other words, what if I ran this and I didn't make any guess whatsoever? When I click the button to make a guess, okay? What we'll have set up, and you might have it done already, but if you don't, I'll show you how to do it in just a second. But we're going to make this keypad, when it comes up on the screen, it'll only have numbers on it. So you don't even have to worry about non-numeric input. The only type of bad input, so to speak, you can worry about is if they leave it blank. Now, we could hard code a 0 in there or something else. But I chose not to do that. So what this is saying, when there's nothing in there, and this is one of the few things that Swift stole or borrowed or took from Objective-C, is the concept of nil. When something is nil, usually that's what we refer to as null. But for whatever reason, when they came up with Objective-C, they called it nil. Okay? Maybe there's a story behind, don't know, don't care. All right? So this thing here that says, if it's not equal to nil, what that means is there's something in there. I don't know what, but there's something in there. And because of the fact that there's something in there, and I know that it's a numeric keypad, there can only be numbers in there, correct? All right. So what we're attempting to do here in this line of code that you see right here, it says whatever our current guess was. All right. So let's say we put a 50 in there. It's saying grab that value that's in that text field, convert it to an integer. Why? Because we want to throw it into a variable that's called the guess, which we defined earlier as being an integer. Remember we said the guess equals 0 or whatever it was? Okay? Now, this goes back to a thing that Luke mentioned before, because this can get a little bit quirky. Because quite often when you're working, either you'll put it in or the system will put an exclamation point in there for you. And it's a weird kind of symbol to have in there, because most people, when they see an exclamation point, are used to seeing an exclamation point followed by an equal sign, meaning not equal to. All right? The other thing you've got to realize, too, is very often, not here, but very often, when you have an exclamation point, it'll work in conjunction with a question mark. All right? Now, why did they choose those symbols? I can't tell you, because they didn't ask me. All right? In all seriousness, I don't know why they chose those symbols. But one of the things that's in there, I want to use their documentation because it's a heck of a lot better than anything I give you. All right? Remember at the beginning of class, I asked you to go on your other machine and bring up that thing for the Swift, the basics. If you go in there, you don't have to do this. But if you do go in there and you go down about 2/3, 3/4 of the way, there's a whole thing in there that's called optionals. And optionals, they mention, are used in a situation where a value may be absent. All right, and you might say, so? What happens is, in an app or in a non-app, in this language, if I attempt to take whatever is in this field and convert it to an integer, if it can't be converted because it's either empty or it's a non-numeric value, the program crashes. Does that make sense? That's literally what happens. So what we're doing here is some defensive programming. So we're saying if it is equal to nil, then the else will be true. So I'm just sticking it to 50. So what I'm just doing is I'm taking the guess and I'm setting it equal to 50. Now, what I probably should have done there is I probably also should have said current guess.text. I should have set that to 50, just so you could have seen it on screen. That would have been a better thing to do. And since I forgot to do it, I'm going to do it right now. Usually, when you do this, that's a mistake. Okay, so something I put in there was wrong. That's okay. I'm not worried about that, literally. I'm not worried about it one way or the other, because it'll get fixed. Doggone it. Except I'm clicking the wrong buttons now. But, there we go. Boom. Thank you.
Doesn't that have to be in quotes?
That might help. There, thank you. See, I'm telling the school that you're not going to be allowed to leave. As long as I'm here, you don't have to stay. All right, that makes sense. All right. There are times that wasn't an example. I actually wish that it would have come up. You know how you get the IntelliSense in Eclipse, where if you take your mouse and put it on something, if you forgot to import it, etc., it'll ask you to do it? What sometimes comes up, depending on the error in here, it'll have a little almost like a little button that comes up when you highlight it, it'll say fix. And then you can look at it and it'll show you what the fix is right in the editor. And if you choose that, it'll fix it. Now, that would have been nice if it would have had one there, it would have added it, but it didn't. All right. So again, if we left it blank, we're going to do this. Okay? So why, I'm asking you this question. Why, when I put that if in there, why didn't I say if current guest.text equal nil, and then do this, and then say else, and then do this? In other words, why did I put it in the order that it's in, as opposed to flipping that order? Occasionally, one time I'm just going to say, no, we're not going on until somebody tells me what it is. If you got a numeric keyboard up there, all right, what is a better chance of having happen? That there's something in there that you put in that was a number, or that you left it blank? Don't you literally have an infinite number of numbers that you could put in? All right. So why not check for the thing that should happen most of the time? So in the else is in the rare case where you leave it blank. But this is in the case where there is something there. So I'm saying grab whatever was put in there and copy it into my variable. That's all I'm saying. All right, now we made a guess, because we clicked our make guess button. All right. So I'm adding 1 to num guesses. I mean, did I have to do it exactly right there? There's a lot of ways that this program could have been written. Okay? So if, Travis is going on because he's got a little more experience than the rest of you in this language, and he's already playing with it. He might have done things that were differently than different than the way I did them. That's okay. I don't care. I don't want anybody. The last thing we need is a clone of me. All right? So we've done all this. Now we come down to here. We just made a guess, so let's increment our guess count. That should look familiar to you. Again, it wouldn't matter if we say number of guesses plus plus, or number of guess or plus plus number of guesses, or if we would have said number of guesses plus equal 1, or if we would have said number of guesses equal number of guesses plus 1. So there's 4 different ways we could have done that. That's probably the fastest way. All right? All right. And going back before, when you saw that exclamation point, because this is what Luke talked about, when you put an exclamation point on the end like that, what it says is that this should have a value, but it might not. So by putting that exclamation point there, what you're saying is the value technically is optional. Now you still have to put some code in there to handle it if you left it off, and that was the code I just showed you. So I don't know if that answered your question. Hopefully at least it started answering your question. All right. Convert the number of guesses variable that's right here. Now we got to go the other way. Previously, we went and did a toInt to grab what was in here and throw it into an integer. Now we want to go in reverse. We want to take the actual number of guesses, which is here, and we want to convert it to a string so we can put it in here. Does that make sense? All right. And I just did a cast. There's a string value. There's a couple ways that you can do this. All right. And I just did it this way. All right. Then this is where I started running into my trouble. And again, this first thing that's in here you don't have. But we're going to go over all of it right now. All right? And I'll eventually, when I get this working, I'll give you another hard copy next week. I should have just held off on the hard copy. All right? The problem that I had in here is what I told you before. The actual variable that's called, that holds the guess. All right? What we want to do is we want to be able to compare that to the number we actually generated. Does that make sense to everyone? So if in here, if our guess was 50 and the actual number that we generated was 60, what should happen when we click make guess is it should increment this by 1 and it should say too low here. Does all that make sense? That's what should happen. All right. So the problem is the actual secret number is an uint32. And this was a regular int, what we were using before. So I created, this is a local variable because I'm creating it right in this method. var x equal int number. And I did that so that I'm able to use now x and basically be able to use it as though whatever the secret number was, as though it was a regular integer. All right. So this says if the guess I just made was less than 1 or greater than 100, what should happen is in here, where it says status, it should say out of range. All right. Otherwise, if the guess we just made is less than the secret number, this should say too low. Otherwise, if it's equal to the number, it should say too high. And if they're equal, it should say you guessed it. So those are the 4 things that status should say. And that's the rest of that routine. That's it. Any questions on what's in that routine and what's going on? I know it seems like it took a long time to explain it, but again, it's because you are doing this. The logic is the same. All right, next hour, guess what? You get another handout. The good news is that one works. All right, and it even works better because I sent it to John last night, and he sent back. He said, you might want to do this, you might want to do this. So yeah. All right. So let's go onward and upward. Now I've got to tell you something interesting. All right. Okay, it's interesting in Jeff's world, maybe not in yours. But this routine right here, it's called show alert. Okay. I showed it to you the other day. You remember that? We ran the program, I clicked the button, and it came up with an alert box that gave you the rules for the game. Guess what? It doesn't work anymore. It literally just stopped working. So, I'm not that dumb. I thought, wait a minute, I had to have changed some stuff. I mean, I literally had to have changed some stuff. So what did I change? Well, I had a bunch of \n's in here, okay? And it was formatting it real funky-like because what it does is it takes the text that's in there and it centers it automatically. All right, and I really wanted it left justified, so I took all those out. What else did I do? Nothing else I can think of. But now it's giving me an error message whenever I try to. And not only is it an error message, it's a bad error message because the program terminates. All right. So what's in here? I took this right from the Hello World one we did. So what's in that routine that's called show alert means when you click the button that says rules, all that stuff should basically show in an alert box. Okay, so it should come up and say, welcome to the Swift Programming Guessing Game. The computer will generate a random number from 1 to 100. You will guess the number and I will let you know if the guess was correct, too high, too low, or out of range. I will also tell you the number of guesses that you made. So that's what should happen in there. All right. And it's amazing too because that's what I was doing when I got in here this morning. I was listening to a thing from a guy from Microsoft on security while I was writing some code. And when I went and Googled the error, it came up and said, oh, it's this. And everybody wrote back, oh, thanks, I fixed my problem. And it said, you just have to go in and you have to make this one setting. Of course, that setting is totally grayed out on mine. So I don't know how to make it, considering it's totally grayed out. All right, so I'll just investigate it some more. We'll figure out why. All right. This literally is a routine that's called clear the GUI. And you'll notice that what clear the GUI does right there is it calls another routine that's called clear all. So this routine right here calls this routine right here. The reason I put it in 2 routines is I call that from more than one place. So what am I doing here? The guess, that numeric variable we did earlier, I'm zeroing it out. Number of guesses, I'm zeroing it out. This right here, all right, that, I'm setting equal to nothing. That I'm setting equal to nothing. That I'm setting equal to 0. Does all that make sense? And this, which looks kind of weird, that's how you set the focus. All right, so it's self.currentGuess.become first responder, which means that after I clear everything, the cursor should be flashing right in there. So it's ready for me to go make another guess. All right. I did mention this to you last week, but I want to say it again right now, and that is as I move down in here. All right, that's the rest of the program right there. This is for the exit button, and it's exit 0. But I did mention this to you last week, and I'm saying it again right now, and that is that quite often Apple will reject your app if you put an exit button in. All right, just so you know that. So why did I put one in there? Because I put it in, just to show it and make it look more like the one that was an Android. But I'm not going to have an exit button in there anymore. The way that you're supposed to end an app is, typically you've got the X that's up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and you click there. That's how you're supposed to end it. Now, it was interesting because I started reading online. That's what it says in here. Then I started reading this one. And the guy who wrote this totally disagrees with that and said, basically, screw you. There's a lot of valid reasons that I might want to exit a program. All right? So what he said was, I don't think that you're right at all. And they had people weighing in on Stack Overflow that they agreed or they didn't agree with this person. All right? But the bottom line is, it's there for completeness, but that's it. Here is the new game. Remember, we called new game way back up in view did load. So what does that do? It clears our GUI, then it generates a random number. How does it generate the random number? It calls generate random number, which is right here. Return arc4 random underscore uniform 100 plus 1. All right? If you want more on that, you can go here. This is a Ray Wenderlich article. He explains there's two ways that you can actually create a random number. There's arc4 uniform, and there's arc4 random, and there's arc4 random uniform. And in that article that I referenced right there, he explains the difference between the two and why you might want to choose one as opposed to the other. All right? That's what I've got. So if you wanted to try to catch up now, if you've had enough, you have to walk out of here. I don't know if that's why Luke left, but
He's sick.
oh, okay. But if you got to leave for whatever reason, that's fine. I will tell you, and you'll see it in just a second. But I have to switch machines. But after I switch machines and you come back, what you're going to see right away is the one works. You're going to get another handout. If I would have known he was going, I would have given him this one too. But this is the one that we're talking about next hour. This is the same thing, but written in Android, and it works. All right? It's received the Wanda stamp of approval, to my knowledge. All right, there's still things he would probably change if it was his. I get that. People always say that to me. It's like, does that bother you if you give out stuff in class and somebody goes and rewrites it or makes? No, I like that. No one should ever assume, well, he knows what he's talking about. That everything he said was correct. How do you know that? All right, so we'll pick it up again at 10 o'clock. If you didn't hear this, I said it the other day, but if you didn't hear this, today and tomorrow, if you happen to be here on Friday, if you go to the cafeteria, I think it starts at 11. They call it Soup Wars, and you may have been here for it last year. The culinary students put it out. You get like a real little styrofoam bowl of soup. They'll probably have anywhere from 10 to 20 different types of soup. For $3, you can sample as many of them as you want, as many times as you want. So it's a kind of all the soup you can eat type of thing. Then they ask you to vote. All right. So if you're interested in that, why am I telling you that? Because at 11:30, that's where I'm going. All right. I've got a meeting at 12 o'clock today. They're having some kind of evidently they're thinking that whatever we're choosing to put out for students to do evaluations of us, they want a standard type of tool. So I have to go to a meeting on that at 12. I'm hoping that it gets done early because I don't want to have to sit there till 1 and then walk in here. So.
Okay if we throw these, right?
What's that?
I said it's still not okay if we throw these max, right?
No.
Because he keeps telling me to add a comma. I have 6 commas now, and he still keeps telling me to add more.
Okay. My guess is it doesn't